All right, sports fans, how's everybody out there doing? William Martin coming at you one more time here on YouTube with another edition of the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge Podcast. Conference Championship Week in the world of college basketball is here. And of course, as always, one of the premier events in regards to conference tournaments continues to be the Big East tournament. Now, since 1983, Madison Square Garden in New York City has been home to this iconic event as it's seen a who's who of basketball royalty playing this game this tournament rather over the years, as well as some iconic moments as well. You just think about some of those legendary names, and I can't, rattle off all of them, but nonetheless, some of them. You think about Chris Mullin, Patrick Ewing, Pearl Washington, Derek Coleman, Allen Iverson, and Carmelo Anthony, just to name a few. Okay, and of course Ray Allen. These are just some of the legendary college basketball players over the years to participate in the Big East tournament. You think about that Kemba Walker shot for UConn back in 2011 to knock off Pitt and the Big East quarters as the Huskies were well on their way to being the first and only team in Big East tournament history to win 5 games in 5 days. You think about the Jerry McNamara run for Syracuse back in 2006 when the Orange needed to win 4 games in 4 days in order to get to the NCAA tournament. That UConn Pitt rivalry of the early 2000s. And then just another iconic moment. Not, like, again, I said there's so many, but that Connecticut Syracuse 6 overtime thriller in the Big East quarters back in 2009. You think about the Big East tournament back in '84, where Syracuse and Georgetown were going at it, and of course Pearl Washington and Patrick Ewing were going at it. Ray Allen's last second miracle shot to beat Allen Iverson and Georgetown to win the Big East tournament back in 1996. So many legendary coaches. I mean, the likes of Jim Boeheim, Lou Carnesecca, John Thompson, Jay Wright, and Jim Calhoun, just to name a few, okay? And with all of that said, you would better believe that this year's version of the Big East tournament has the makings of being very special as well. When you think about the Big East this year, first thing that comes to mind is a turnaround for St. John's under head coach Rick Pitino. Just 2 years ago, the Johnnies were only 18 and 15, and now Patino is in his second year as the head coach of St. John's, and they've won their first Big East regular season title since 1992. And you just think about the legendary basketball career of Rick Pitino. He's a winner. Every place that he's been, he's won. He took Boston University to the NCAA tournament. Providence, he got them to the Final Four. Kentucky, he led them to a national championship and 3 Final Four appearances. Louisville, he won a national championship with. Okay, and now he's doing some of that magic here with St. John's. Not to mention, he also got Iona to the NCAA tournament. Okay, so you look at the St. John's turnaround, like I said, and because of that, the Garden is going to be buzzing. I mean, the Garden's always buzzing for this event. Make no mistake about it. But the Garden's really going to be buzzing this Thursday afternoon when St. John's takes the floor in the Big East quarters. Whether that's going to be against Providence or Butler remains to be seen. But nonetheless, you think about how the Johnnies have been able to pack them in this year at Madison Square Garden when they've played games there. And of course, I said this before, the Big East is in a different spot when you've got the likes of Syracuse, oh, pardon me, I almost said Syracuse, but St. John's and Georgetown competing. And of course, Georgetown's in the process of turning things around under Ed Cooley. They're still a work in progress, but St. John's is clearly there. Okay. The Big East as a whole, they're locked to get 4 teams in the NCAA tournament, in my opinion. I think St. John's is there. I think Marquette is there. I think Creighton and Connecticut are all there. But of course, the question is going to be here in championship week, will the Johnnies be, pardon me, will the Big East rather be able to get a 15? I think it's a very good possibility. You look at Xavier and the way that they finished the regular season. The Musketeers won their last 7 ball games to finish the regular season. They're 21 and 10 heading into the Big East tournament. They're 13-7 overall in the conference, and they're tied for fourth with Marquette. And you got to go back to last year's Seton Hall team. They were the first team in Big East history, okay? And of course, they were clearly an oversight last year for the NCAA tournament, but nonetheless, Seton Hall was the first team in Big East history to win 13 regular season games and not make the NCAA tournament. I don't think that is going to happen with Xavier this year, especially the way that they're playing. Like I said, they are playing some of the best basketball in the nation. They won their last seven and nine out of their last 11. And in that stretch includes wins over both Connecticut and Creighton. Now, Xavier comes in as the four seed. I think that meeting with Marquette Thursday afternoon in the Big East quarters can go either way. I like the way that Xavier's playing right now. And should the Musketeers get past the Golden Eagles in the quarters, they would have a date with St. John's possibly in the Big East semis. And remember, Xavier played St. John's very tough in two contests earlier this season. Could the third time potentially be the charm for Sean Miller's bunch? I'll tell you like this: if Xavier is able to get past St. John's and get into the Big East championship game, they're all but a lock at this point, in my opinion, to get to the NCAA tournament. The team that Xavier is going to face in the Big East quarters, the Marquette Golden Eagles, they got to look to get some momentum going back for themselves. Okay, Marquette has really limped down the stretch here in the regular season, including losing their last two games to finish the regular season. Of course, they had that heartbreaking loss on Saturday at home against St. John's. But for Shaka Smart and his bunch, they definitely need to get back on track. Now, for Creighton and Connecticut, they're on the other side of the bracket, which means that they'll avoid St. John's potentially until the Big East championship game. You look at UConn, they've been up and down at times this season, of course. I know that they are not the same Connecticut Huskies that we saw win the last two national championships, but this is still a very dangerous team. This is still a team that also has a lot of championship medal. And of course, you have a head coach in Dan Hurley that has that championship pedigree. Greg McDermott's Creighton Blue Jays. You cannot sleep on them, especially with a healthy Ryan Kalkbrenner plugging up things in the middle. So I'm looking at them right there. I'm also looking at the Villanova Wildcats. I said a couple of weeks ago, not on this platform, of course, that I felt like the Big East had a chance to get five teams, and it was going to come down to either Villanova or Xavier. Xavier's really stepped up. Villanova's right there; they're 18-13. They finished their regular season with a tough loss. I think Villanova's in a different spot than Xavier is heading into the Big East tournament. I really think at this point, especially with the record of 18-13, 11-9 overall, I think the Wildcats might have to run the table and be a bid stealer in order to get to the NCAA tournament. They've got Seton Hall on Wednesday night in round number one. The Wildcats should be heavily favored in that game. I expect Villanova to take care of their business. Then they've got Connecticut. Okay, and what can they do against UConn? They beat UConn already this year, but nonetheless, I think Kyle Neptune's bunch would have to run the table at this point if they want to go dancing. So you look at this thing, and who do I feel is poised to make a run in this tournament? I really like Xavier. If Xavier can get past Marquette, I think that they have the potential to give St. John's a run for their money in the Big East semis if both of these teams were to meet there. But at the end of the day, I think this tournament is St. John's to lose. They're 27-4. They have a ton of momentum going for themselves. The Garden's going to be buzzing this week for the Johnnies. And I think Rick Pitino's going to have his team ready to play. You're looking at St. John's right now. They're ranked sixth in the nation. More than likely, they're going to be a two seed, possibly a three, in the NCAA tournament. Of course, I say that because they got so much to go up against with all of the heavyweights in the Big Ten, the Big 12, and the SEC. But nonetheless, St. John's has held their own this season. They're 27-4 overall, 18-2 within the Big East, and I really like them. I think at this point, it's their tournament to lose. Like I said before, the Garden's going to be buzzing this week. The Big East championship is always a premier event at MSG each and every year. And I truly do believe that the 2025 version of this contest is going to be no different. And it's definitely going to be worth the price of admission and then some. But, folks, that's going to wrap it up. And as always, I want to take this time out to thank each and every one of you for tuning into the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge podcast here on YouTube. I want to take this time out to thank all of you fine folks out there for tuning in. And if you haven't already, please feel free to subscribe to this channel. Also, if you're on the X, please feel free, which is formerly known as Twitter, please feel free to follow me at 300 Pounds of Sports. And like I always say, if you follow me, it'll be my pleasure to follow you right back. There's also the sports discussion group on Facebook at the Sports Depot 365 that you can check it out. Drop a line to be a part of one of the better sports debating sites going on social media. So once again, fine folks, my name is William Martin, and I'm signing off, and I'm saying thanks once again for tuning into the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge podcast here on YouTube. Be well, everybody.